Toyota's $18,000 EV exists, but you can't have it. Here's why. This is the story of how a real Toyota electric vehicle priced at $18,000 became one of the most misleading headlines in automotive news. The Toyota BZ3X and BZ5 exist. They cost around $15,000 to $18,000, and they're selling incredibly well. But there's a catch that makes the entire story completely irrelevant to anyone watching this video outside of China. We're breaking down what Toyota actually announced, why the pricing everyone's talking about doesn't apply to you, and what this reveals about the massive gap between the global EV market and what's happening in China right now. The viral claim versus reality. You've probably seen the headlines screaming about Toyota's new sub-$20,000 electric vehicle that's going to shake up the entire EV market. Technically, those headlines aren't lying because Toyota did launch electric vehicles at these prices, but here's what they're not telling you in the thumbnail. The specific $17,999 figure doesn't appear in any official Toyota press release. What actually exists is the Toyota BZ5, launched on June 10th, 2025 in China with a starting price of 129,800 yuan, which translates to about 18,000 US. Even cheaper is the Toyota BZ3X, launched on March 6th, 2025, starting at 109,800 yuan, or roughly $15,000. These are real cars with real production numbers and real sales happening right now. But here's the part that changes everything. They're exclusively available in China, and not just sold in China, but legally unable to be sold anywhere else at anywhere near these prices. Why American buyers can't access these prices. The United States slapped 100% tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles in May 2024. Read that again, because it's 100%, which means even if Toyota wanted to import the BZ3X to America, the tariff alone would double the price before it even reached a dealership. Your $15,000 Chinese EV just became $30,000, and that's before shipping, dealer markup, or any other costs. Canada followed suit with identical 100% tariffs in August 2024, and the European Union added 17% to 35.3% company-specific tariffs in October 2024. The entire developed world has essentially locked these vehicles out. Tariffs are only part of the story, though. These Chinese market Toyotas achieve their low prices through supply chains that literally cannot be replicated elsewhere, using BYD Blade lithium iron phosphate batteries from the same BYD that's dominating Chinese EV sales. The vehicles are manufactured through Toyota's Chinese joint ventures, GAC Toyota and FAW Toyota, with 65% of their parts Chinese-sourced and only 1% imported. This isn't Toyota being clever with pricing in different markets. What we're looking at is a fundamentally different product built in a fundamentally different manufacturing ecosystem. What Toyota actually sells in China. The specs on these vehicles are actually pretty impressive. The Toyota BZ3X is a 5-door compact SUV measuring 4,600 millimeters long, 1,875 wide, and 1,645 high, and it offers 3 battery options, 50.03, 58.4, or 67.9 kilowatt hours, all using lithium iron phosphate chemistry. Range on the Chinese CLTC testing cycle runs from 430 to 610 kilometers depending on battery size. The motor produces 150 to 165 kilowatts, which works out to about 204 to 224 horsepower, and it comes with a 14.6-inch touchscreen and a Qualcomm 8155 chip, with a LiDAR available on higher trims. Before you start converting those range numbers, here's something you need to know. CLTC range figures are approximately 20% to 25% more optimistic than EPA ratings used in the United States. That 610-kilometer maximum range translates to maybe 379 miles in real-world American driving conditions, which is still respectable, but not the miracle the raw numbers suggest. The BZ5 is positioned slightly higher as a coupe SUV, similar in size to a Tesla Model Y, offering 65.28 or 73.98 kilowatt-hour batteries using BYD blade technology. Chinese rated range hits 342 to 391 miles. The launch success. Nobody expected. When the BZ3X launched on March 6, 2025, it crashed GAC Toyota's servers. The company received over 10,000 orders in the first hour, and by May 2025, it had become the best-selling foreign brand EV in China, with cumulative deliveries exceeding 62,000 units by November 2025. This is Toyota, a company often criticized for being slow on EVs, suddenly finding massive success in the world's most competitive electric vehicle market. There's a painful irony here, though, because this success came at a cost most Western automakers would find unacceptable. Toyota's average profit per car in China dropped to 162,000 yen in fiscal 2024, which works out to about $1,090 per vehicle. Compare that to fiscal 2021, when they were making 274,000 yen per car, and you'll see that total China profits fell from 525 billion yen to 290 billion in the same period. Toyota is winning market share by adopting what analyst Julie Buter of Pelham Smithers Associates called replicating the Chinese automaker's formula of low-priced EVs with high-tech content. But they're paying for it with razor-thin margins. What Americans actually get: walk into a Toyota dealership in America today, and you can buy the Toyota BZ4X with a starting price of $39,150. And that's after a $6,000 price cut announced on December 17, 2024. That's more than double the Chinese market prices, generating all those headlines. Toyota executives have been remarkably blunt about why they can't do better, with Andrea Carlucci, Toyota's European Product Development Director, stating in January 2024, "There is still a premium attached to electric cars that won't go away until a substantial shift in the cost of batteries occurs. We cannot achieve that level at the moment." Toyota North America CEO Ted Ogawa was even more direct about the company's strategy. "Wasted investment is worse than the credit purchase. Our starting point is what the customer demand should be." Translation: Toyota doesn't believe most customers want pure electric vehicles yet, so they're not investing heavily in making them affordable, and whether that's wise strategy or catastrophic miscalculation depends on who you ask. The numbers that tell the real story. Toyota's actual global EV performance in 2024 shows that Toyota and Lexus combined sold only 139,892 pure electric vehicles worldwide. That represents just 1.4% of their total sales. 1.4%. The world's largest automaker is selling EVs at 1.4% of volume. But here's the twist. Toyota's electrified vehicle sales, which include hybrids, reached 1,006,461 units in the US alone in 2024, a record 53.1% increase year over year. Toyota's betting everything on hybrids rather than pure EVs, and at least in terms of current sales, it's working. The company targets 30% BEV sales by 2030, while EPA regulations suggest manufacturers should be over 50% electric by then. Toyota is publicly planning to fall short of government expectations. The competitive landscape. Toyota faces: to understand why Toyota made these China-specific vehicles, you need to understand the competition they're facing there. BYD's Seagull sells for $7,800 to $11,000 in China, and reached 1 million cumulative sales by June 2025, with May 2025 alone bringing 60,131 units sold. That's more than Toyota's entire global pure EV output in a single month, from a single model, at half the price of Toyota's cheapest Chinese offering. This is the market Toyota is trying to compete in, where Western manufacturing costs, Western profit expectations, and Western supply chains simply don't work when your competition is vertically integrated. Chinese manufacturers building batteries, motors, and vehicles under one roof at costs nobody in Detroit or Tokyo can match. Expert reactions: a complete split. The expert community is absolutely divided on whether Toyota's strategy is brilliant or disastrous. Chairman Akio Toyoda has been the most prominent voice defending Toyota's cautious approach, predicting in January 2024 that EVs will not reach more than 30% market share, no matter how much technological progress is made. He's characterized Toyota's approach as a department store of powertrains, where customers, not regulations or politics, should choose. Environmental groups see this very differently. Greenpeace ranked Toyota last among 10 major automakers in decarbonization efforts for 2 consecutive years, giving them a D grade, and Catherine Garcia of Sierra Club called Toyota one of the most egregious companies in the auto industry for failing to manufacture EVs, consistently lobbying against clean cars, and blatant greenwashing. Financial analysts land somewhere in the middle, with Goldman Sachs maintaining a buy rating on Toyota, and analyst Kota Yuzawa stating, "The market is now rethinking the potential of hybrid products, which are a strength of Toyota." Fitch Ratings' Satoru Aoyama warned that Toyota is not correctly responding to calls from the market to take a lead in electric vehicles and risks losing investor confidence. Same company, same strategy, completely opposite interpretations of whether it's working. The battery technology timeline. Toyota's path to affordable EVs everywhere else depends entirely on battery cost reduction, and they've got a roadmap, though whether they can execute it is another question. For 2026 to 2027, Toyota is targeting a bipolar lithium iron phosphate battery promising 20% more range and 40% cost reduction. And that 40% figure matters because that's the kind of breakthrough that could actually bring US prices down to reasonable levels. For 2027 to 2028, they're planning a high-performance battery targeting over 1,000 kilometers of range, which works out to over 600 miles. And this is the big one: solid-state batteries with 621 plus mile range and 10-minute charging. Here's where skepticism is absolutely warranted though. Toyota originally targeted solid-state batteries for 2020, then pushed it to 2023, then 2025, and now 2027 to 2028. So this timeline has slipped repeatedly, and there's no guarantee this latest date is any more realistic than the previous ones. What's actually coming to the US Toyota is investing $13.9 billion in a North Carolina battery plant that became operational in November 2025, and they've committed over $21 billion to US electrification through 2030. These investments are necessary to produce competitive US market EVs, but they add costs that don't exist in Chinese production. The company has targeted 7 US-made EV models by mid-2027, but specific pricing hasn't been announced. And here's the reality check: Toyota has revised its global EV production target significantly. The original April 2023 announcement of 1.5 million annual BEV sales by 2026 was scaled back to approximately 800,000 units, which represents nearly a 40% reduction. When companies cut their production targets by 40%, that usually means one of two things. They've realized demand isn't there, or they've realized they can't hit their cost targets. Either way, it's not a sign of confidence. The Thailand wildcard. There's one more piece to this puzzle. Toyota has announced plans for affordable EVs from a Thailand manufacturing hub by 2028, and Thailand has become a major EV production center in Southeast Asia, with lower costs than Western markets. but higher quality control than some Chinese facilities. This could be Toyota's attempt to find a middle ground with lower costs than US or European production, but without the tariff barriers that make Chinese imports impossible. 2028 is still years away though, and a lot can change in the EV market between now and then. Why this matters beyond Toyota. The Toyota BZ3X and BZ5 story reveals something bigger than one company's product strategy. It shows how completely the global automotive market has split into separate ecosystems. There's the Chinese market, where $15,000 EVs with sophisticated technology are normal, where BYD can sell 60,000 units of a single model in a month, and where the competition is so intense that even Toyota, a company famous for efficiency, has to slash profit margins to $1,090 per car just to stay relevant. Then there's everywhere else, where the cheapest Toyota EV costs $39,150, where 100% tariffs make Chinese vehicles economically impossible, and where established manufacturers are investing billions in local battery production, just to have a chance at competing with Chinese costs someday. These aren't different pricing strategies for the same cars. These are fundamentally different products for fundamentally different markets, and the gap between them isn't closing, but widening. The bottom line. Let's come back to where we started. Is Toyota's new $18,000 car shaking up the entire EV market? If you live in China, absolutely. The BZ3X became the best-selling foreign EV in that market for a reason, offering genuine value with modern technology at a price that competes with domestic Chinese brands. If you live literally anywhere else, this announcement is completely irrelevant to your purchasing decisions. The cheapest Toyota EV you can actually buy costs more than double, and that's after a recent price cut, with Toyota executives explicitly stating they cannot currently produce sub-$30,000 EVs for Western markets. The real story here isn't about a cheap Toyota that's going to change everything. It's about how the automotive industry has fractured into parallel universes that barely interact anymore. How Chinese manufacturing and supply chains have reached cost levels that Western companies can't match even if they wanted to, and how tariffs have turned what could have been global products into regional exclusives. And maybe most importantly, it's a reminder that when you see a too good to be true headline about automotive pricing, there's almost always a geographic asterisk that changes the entire story. Toyota's $15,000 EV is real. You just can't have one. That gap between what exists somewhere and what's available to you is the actual story. The clickbait headlines are missing. The question isn't whether Toyota can build an affordable EV, because they clearly can, but only in China with Chinese partners using Chinese supply chains. The question is whether they can or will bring those economics to the rest of the world, and right now, every signal suggests the answer is no. At least not until their battery technology roadmap delivers cost reductions that are still years away, if they arrive at all. That's the real story, not the price. The geography,